What's up, guys? Rick from DFS On Demand here. And before we jump into the video, I do have one big announcement to make. I have just released my first course ever. It is called Scraping Stats. It is a step-by-step guide on how to scrape sports data off of the internet. So we go through pulling statistics for one player, for multiple players, for the entire league at one time. This is a skill set that will allow you to pull a ton of data off the internet, and it's how I built my databases. That is live right now. I will put a link in the description below. It's a course. It's almost 2 hours long, and if you follow along, it's going to take you a lot more than that. But it's really cool, and it's gotten good reviews so far. If you want to win access to that course, I will run a drawing. So if you are watching on YouTube, what you need to do is make sure you're subscribed to the channel, like the video, and leave a comment of something you would like to learn. So that could be how to get a data feed put into your models, how to create a projection model, anything specific, anything general, just something you want to learn below in the comment section, and I will pull a winner and reveal it next time. If you are listening on the podcast version, go give a 5-star review. Same thing. The comment can be something that you have learned or something that you want to learn, and then leave me like your Twitter handle or something like that so I can get in touch with you and I'll draw it out again, or I'll announce it and you can get in touch with me. So a couple different ways. It's been great so far. I know you guys will enjoy it, but let's get on to the video. All right, the preview for the Wells Fargo Championship. We got a little bit of a, just a mini bye week last week with the Zurich Classic. There was PGA Tour golf, but there were no DraftKings contests. So, I count that as a mini bye week. We took the week off, made some updates to the website, which you've either seen or will be coming. There's a lot of good stuff coming, especially for PGA, but Quail Hollow is the host for this week, and it's going to be a challenge. One of the hardest courses on the tour each and every year, usually ranks right behind basically the majors. It's going to be long, and it's going to be a pretty low winning score unless, the course gets really wet. Something happens, but should be very fast greens. You're going to have to be long off the tee. You're going to have to be accurate off the tee, and if you hit the ball a long way, that should also suit here as well. So let's start with the cheat sheet, and this does have some new features on it. So if you are watching on the video preview, I've gone back to this kind of all-in-one line type of cheat sheet, which is you're able to see recent form and tournament history all on the same line. I think it was a little bothersome to keep flipping back and forth. I also have the strokes gain data on here. I also have the official world golf rankings on here. I also have the cut percentage made percentages on here. And one note is the recent tournaments are worldwide. So I don't know many other sites, correct me if I'm wrong, there could be, that are doing the PGA Tour recent form, and then also this is everything worldwide. It's Qatar, it's the Indian Open, all that stuff. The legend is on the bottom. Okay, so let's talk about this. 5 guys over $10,000, led by Rory McIlroy at 11.8, and I don't think we need to spend too much time on him because if you're going to spend up, you're going to go get Rory. He's got just absolute elite course history here. A win back in 2015. He piles up the top 10s. In fact, he had a 5-year stretch between 2012 and 2016 in which he finished no worse than 10th place. Tacked on a 16th place in 2018. He's coming off the Players win. He's just played well. 21st at the Masters, which, a little disappointing, but, 21st at the Masters, we'll take it. This is absolutely a spot to try to go up and get Rory, which makes some really compelling game theory arguments down below him. So Jason Day, just a very unpopular guy to roster for DFS purposes. Quite frankly, everyone just thinks he's going to have a bad back and withdrawal. He'll go out and win at like 10% owned, and then everyone will jump on him and he'll withdraw, and we'll get back to this whole, it'll just be a vicious cycle. Clearly has everything you would need to fit here with being your defending champion. The other time he teed it up was in 2012 where he had a 9th place finish there. So just, the guy I think makes for a really good contrarian play because I suspect you're either going to go up and get Rory at 11-8, or you're going to spend down on someone like Hideki, who has unbelievable tee to green numbers, which I'll show you in a second. You could even go get Ricky's here. I also think Justin Rose is compelling. He burned a lot of us at the Masters, which, the last time out is when we saw him. That usually keeps his ownership in check, and has teed up twice here in the last, I guess actually 2011 is the entirety of this tournament's history, so I shouldn't say in the last 8 or 10 years. It's in the history of the tournament. In 2014, he had a 5th place. In 2016, he had a 3rd place. Those are the last 2 times he teed it up at Quail Hollow, so certainly in play this week. All right, let's get out of the cheat sheet for a second and jump around to some of these other tools, because I think that's going to show a few more compelling cases here. Let me pull up the correlation for Quail Hollow. So if you're new to the channel, this is the course correlation. So it is the most important stats based on a regression model that I've run using the last 12 years of DraftKings scoring and the last 12 years of PGA Tour statistics. So the ones that really jump out, this is very interesting. So Quail Hollow, you can tell how long it is because the highest ranked stats are correlating like 175 to 200 yards, 225 to 250, and 200 plus, which we rarely, if ever, see here. We also see going for the green, and we also see birdie or better from the rough. So it's literally, if you just look at the highest correlated or the highest ranked stats, it's going to tell you this course is long, and it's going to tell you it's tough because if you're making birdies out of the rough, you're going to have a hell of a lot of success here, which is a stat that we don't usually see any of these stats when we go through this every single week. So this is my weekly disclaimer that when we start getting into the proximity stats like birdie or better from a certain range or approaches from 225 to 250, I am a bit concerned about sample sizes. I don't know, I could find out, but I assume the sample sizes for guys who have approach shots between 225 and 250, it's probably pretty small. It might be only a handful of shots for each player this year, so we're not going to weigh those as much, but let's kind of go through and see what we've got here. The ones that are most obvious, strokes gained total is always going to be your better players, but I want to see if there is any value here. And it would appear that, based on, this is since January 1st, that there would be some value in Lucas Glover. So Lucas Glover is $8,500. He is the 5th best golfer in strokes gained total. He's only behind Rory, Jason Day, and Hideki Matsuyama. He's right ahead of Justin Rose. The other compelling case with Lucas Glover, if we flip back to the cheat sheet for a second, he won this inaugural event here at Quail Hollow. So he is a former champion. Has not had great success in other years, has kind of alternated like top 25s and missed cuts. He did have an 8th place finish back in 2016, but Lucas Glover really having probably a career year at this point. Missed the cut at the RBC, but before that it was a 14th at the Valero Texas Open, a 13th at the Valspar, missed the cut at the Players, but it was a 10th at the API, which is the Arnold Palmer. This is a pretty, and a 4th at Honda, which I think that Riviera is a pretty good correlating course for success here. So Lucas Glover at $8,500 probably gets a lot of my dollars here, except, and maybe I'd have to pile both of them in. Benny On at 83, we're going to talk about in a second. Also extremely compelling case to make for him. So back to those key stats. So Glover appears to be a value. Jason Kokrak, Gary Woodland, and Sungjae Im also appear to be values. Those guys all are better in the strokes gained total number than what their salary would indicate. Okay, that's basically what I'm getting at. SDFA, always an important stat. This is that strokes differential field average. It's very similar to strokes gained, but strokes gained is based on that PGA database of all the shots in the history of the tournament, or in the history of the tour, essentially, right? SDFA is more comparing this round against the rest of the field, as opposed to comparing this shot against the history of all shots. So that's what we're looking at, and I like to use it especially in tougher fields or tougher courses because it's usually a pretty good indicator of kind of who shows up. again, Lucas Glover is fourth on this list. So you're going to make me roster him here. The key stats are going to make me roster him. Tony Finau outpaces his salary. Gary Woodland outpaces his salary. But again, it's Rory, Rose, and Day. So the more lineups you can get with exposure to these studs, I think you're going to be in a much better situation. Okay, let's talk birdie or better for one quick second here. Justin Rose and Gary Woodland, the only two guys over 28%. Jason Day is third. You get Cam Champ, who I don't think I could roster at this point. I'm trying to see if there's anybody else compelling here. I think Phil is pretty compelling at 9,100. You know he's going to make a lot of birdies. You know he's going to make a lot of bogeys. But he does have this unbelievable history here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Basically 6 top 10s. He's never missed the cut. A bunch of top 5s, 4 of them in his last 6 starts here. So you could probably convince me to play a significant portion of Phil Mickelson this week. We'll go to the proximity stats. Remember, they are proximity, so lower is better, 175 to 200. Again, with the caveat that sample size matters here. Justin Rose leads the way. So again, if you're going to buy a stud up top and you want to be different than everybody, I would suggest go get Justin Rose, go get Jason Day. Those guys probably come in well under where you're going to get Rory, where you're going to get Hideki, and where you're going to get Ricky Fowler. I assume that. So those are the guys I'm targeting up at the top. Ches Reavie is number 2 on this list, and I actually think it's worth mentioning. Finau is third, and he can hit it a long way. And our good buddy Jason Kokrak, who continues to pile up top 20s, is fourth on this list. The further away from the hole we get as we move to proximity from 225 to 250, again, I worry even more about sample size because there's probably not a ton of shots from here. Stenson leads the way, then it's Trey Mullinax, it's Phil Mickelson, it's Adam Svensson, and it's Tony Finau again. So some similar names there. And I'm running through these quickly because, again, I'm not trying to put too much weight on them. I want to go back to the strokes gained numbers here in a second. So greens in regulation over 200. So if it's greens in regulation, we're back to a percentage. So higher is better. And again, you see like Tom Lovelady, who I assume is a very small sample size. He's min priced, leads the way here. So we can kind of throw that out. Keegan would be the first guy that is actually rosterable here. Rory is fifth on this list. Then you get Woodland and Stenson. So again, a lot of very similar names. But let's go to this strokes gained here because I want to show you how good tee to green some of these guys have been. Rory, when we go tee to green since January 1st, far and away the best player in the field. Hideki stands out. Benny On. Can I get Benny On's information here? Yeah, let's do this. Watch this. I'm going to show you something pretty slick here. So I mentioned that mid 8,000s where Glover's at. Ben On. So here's his tee to green game this year. Again, since January 1st. Now this goes back. He's got the waste management here. I think was his first start of the year. He had at the RBC Heritage where he burned everyone, right? He was super chalk and he burned everybody by missing the cut. He had literally, I'm not exaggerating, literally the worst 2 rounds of his entire season tee to green. And pretty much by far, right? Before this, the worst round he had tee to green was the first round at the WGC Mexico. He lost 1.05 strokes in that round. The first round of the RBC, he lost 1.2, basically, a little less. So that was already the worst round of the year he had. Then on Friday, he had a nuclear, absolutely brutal 4.5 strokes that he lost tee to green. I'll tell you what, I'll bet it's not going to be that bad this week, right? I'm betting on Benny On getting back to what we have seen in a much larger sample size than what we saw in 2 rounds at the RBC where he absolutely cooked everybody. I'm getting back on. I think it's a really good bounce back candidate for this week. All right, while I'm here, I want to show you a couple of other things here. So this is that who's hot or not tool that I like a little bit. And the more data we get, the better this becomes, where basically we have every player's baseline, what they've done long-term, and we compare what they're doing recently. And the one name that shows up here is Rory Sabatini. So I think he's 7,700 this week. Don't quote me on that, but pretty sure. I want to show you what his numbers are. And so here's Sabatini. So these are pretty good tee to green numbers, right? Outside of the final round of the RBC Heritage, he was awesome, right? He was in contention for a while. Has basically put together 2 or 3 really good rounds ever since the Players Championship. 2 great rounds at the Valspar, 3 great rounds at Valero, 3 great rounds at RBC Heritage, was in contention in the team event. Obviously, I don't have strokes gain numbers or really a ton of stats for the team event, but him and his partner very much, it was Brian Gay, I believe, very much in contention all week. They played really, really well, piled on a ton of birdies. So he might be somebody, you could go a Rory combo and get double Rory action this week, and it would be a pretty good start to a lineup. The other thing that I saw on here that I have to point out is how poorly, this is almost a joke, how poorly Luke List is putting, which is usually not that big of a deal, right? He always putts terribly, but he is actually putting worse than we would expect him to. So there should be some level of regression for him. We've seen some bad winners win here in the past, but so here's Luke List putting, which he absolutely is always bad, but we're seeing him really, really bad. So since the Players Championship, since the second round of the Players Championship, he's lost 1.2, 1.6, 2.7, 2.3, 5, 1, 1.7, 1.1, and 1.3, which usually, so it's 9 straight rounds he has lost strokes putting. We usually see him at least mix in like a neutral round or 2. This Arnold Palmer Invitational was one of his best because he just, was basically a neutral putter all week. To put this into perspective, Luke List over the last 150 days, so if we use 150 days, which is a little bit longer term as his baseline, we usually see him lose about 2 strokes per tournament, I believe that is. Yeah, per tournament. What he's doing right now in the last 30 days is losing like 5.5, so he's actually 3.6 shots per tournament below what we would expect him to be. So it's actually very remarkable. I felt the need to share that with you because it's so bad. It's even worse than we expected. So those are the guys I'm probably going to be rostering. One guy I do want to point out really quickly because he just got added. Okay, I did update this. He just got added late because he Monday qualified, is Chip McDaniel. If you remember correctly, Chip McDaniel finished top 5, finished 5th place at Corrales, which earned his way into the Valero Texas Open. He was min-priced. He finished 71st. He scored like 44 DraftKings points, but he was min-priced. He was in a lot of our lineups. He did just fine. He went out today. Today's Monday. Monday qualified for this by shooting 5 under. That's going to be a good score any round here at Quail Hollow, and he won the Monday qualifier by 3 strokes, which I'll tell you, if you follow Monday qualifiers, it's a bunch of guys playing for a few spots, and it is usually very, very tight. We have seen like a bunch of guys tie at the top. You have to shoot something really, really low. The fact that he kind of leaped out in front of the field is really inspiring, and this is not the first time he's played on tour this year, of course. So if you're looking for some really deep salary relief, Chip McDaniel is a guy that I'd have to consider down there. So hope you enjoyed that. Follow me on Twitter. I'm gonna continue to tweet out a bunch of cool stuff as I come across it. I've already put out a lot of the strokes gained numbers and things like that. So tweet me. It's at DFS On Demand, or leave a comment below. I will talk to you guys later.